one of the biggest shifts in the racing world has just taken place. Red Bull has just lost one of their key assets, Adrian Newey, to Aston Martin. But here's the twist: Red Bull isn't going down quietly. The Austrian team seems to be making the transition difficult for Newey, making things a little more complicated than expected. Adrian Newey himself has spoken up about this, revealing that Red Bull has intentionally blocked some of the tools he was using during his gardening leave. These tools were essential for his work, and without them, making a smooth transition to Aston Martin has become significantly harder. The bigger picture here? His influence won't be felt until 2026, as his work on Aston Martin's new car is already facing delays. So, did Red Bull intentionally slow down their rivals' progress? And if they did, what kind of impact will it have on Aston Martin? Is this move going to cost them more than they bargained for? This transfer is shaping up to be one of the most impactful changes in the sport, especially considering it's not related to drivers at all. But what happened after Newey announced his departure from Red Bull? Few expected him to continue his legacy, especially due to his age. Yet he's shown everyone, including his former manager, Eddie Jordan, that he's far from done and ready to take on another challenge. However, things took an unexpected turn recently after Newey made some comments regarding Red Bull's actions. The team blocking his tools during his gardening leave has left him behind the curve, which could be a huge setback for his work with Aston Martin. Newey himself has pointed out that, due to this delay, he's already 2 months behind the curve, and it's only going to get worse. Now, think about this: the regulations for the 2026 season are set to change, and Newey needs to be on top of them. But with Red Bull's actions, he won't have access to critical design systems, leaving him at a disadvantage when he finally begins working with Aston Martin. To make matters more complicated, the team in Silverstone will be working with brand new rules and regulations. They won't even see Newey's full impact on the car until 2026. And that's a major risk for them. Newey shared these concerns in an interview on the Autocar podcast, where he explained how Red Bull's move has restricted him from innovating. While he didn't shy away from saying that the team can't completely stop him from thinking outside the box, the block tools have undoubtedly put him in a difficult position. This situation is far from simple, and it's clear that Aston Martin will have to work hard to catch up. But they're not just relying on Newey's genius alone. The team has also secured the services of Andy Cowell from Mercedes and former Ferrari technical director Enrico Cardile. On top of that, they'll be powered by Honda, a partnership that has already proven successful in bringing teams back to the top. So, while Newey's expertise is invaluable, a lot of the team's success will depend on how well these experts collaborate and integrate their ideas. Newey's decision to leave Red Bull was a bold one, but it's not without its risks. With such a strong team now backing him, he must now find a way to mesh his ideas with those of other big names. However, if his transition is delayed by Red Bull's actions, it could have long-term consequences. Aston Martin is counting on him to lead the charge, but there are plenty of moving parts involved. For many fans, the question is, why didn't Newey stay with Red Bull, given their past success? Why seek a new challenge at Aston Martin? According to Christian Horner, the agreement was for Newey to stay with Red Bull until 2025, after which he would step back from F1 altogether. But when you look at the terms of his deal with Aston Martin, it's clear that Newey wasn't planning to call it quits just yet. The contract involved equity and other incentives that weren't available to him at Red Bull. Horner was clear about Newey's departure, stating that the plan was always for him to leave Formula One by 2025 and simply take on a mentoring role. But Newey's agreement with Aston Martin doesn't match that idea. With equity involved and the opportunity to stay active in the sport, it's clear that he's not ready to retire just yet. In fact, as a partner and shareholder in Aston Martin, Newey is positioning himself for a new chapter, and it's one that's full of ambition. Meanwhile, Aston Martin's team has a lot to look forward to. With Newey at the helm of the technical side and other big names like Cowell and Cardile in key positions, the team has high hopes for the future. But one question still looms large: who will be behind the wheel of these future cars? Fernando Alonso, who played a part in pushing for Newey's arrival, has already hinted that he might not be around to drive a car that's fully designed under Newey's guidance. Despite his enthusiasm for the project, Alonso acknowledged that time is running out for him, and he's not sure if he'll still be in F1 when the results start showing. Now, it's interesting to note that Red Bull's situation has started to deteriorate ever since Newey's departure was announced, right around the 2024 Miami Grand Prix. Of course, it's not just Newey's exit that's causing issues for the team. While he may have been a key figure, Red Bull is a massive organization with over 2,000 people working under its command. But Newey's move seemed to trigger a domino effect, leading to the departure of two other major figures: James Wheatley, who took the role of team principal at Audi, and Ben Courton, who left for McLaren. It's clear that Newey's departure was more than just a shift in personnel. It was a signal that things were not as smooth internally as they once seemed. Even after the loss of Dietrich Mateschitz, the team is facing challenges that are becoming harder to ignore. According to some sources, even Jose Foran warned that if Horner remained in charge after the internal investigations, there would likely be a significant exodus from the team. And in fact, that seems to be what's happening now. When Aston Martin made the announcement about Newey joining their team, they certainly didn't hold back. The reveal was made in front of the team's employees at Silverstone, showcasing Newey as a key figure in their future success. However, this move wasn't without controversy. According to Red Bull's Christian Horner, the timing of Aston Martin's public announcement was a bit premature. Despite Newey being on gardening leave for the current year, his contract with Red Bull was still active. Horner called out Aston Martin for celebrating the move before Newey had fully finished his obligations with Red Bull. It's no surprise that Red Bull wasn't thrilled with the decision, but the signs were there for quite a while. Newey himself had previously pointed out some issues with the RB20 design, pointing out flaws that were made without his consent. Interestingly, it wasn't until 2021 that these problems were finally addressed. This situation raises serious questions about how Red Bull will cope with these departures, especially with their recent drop to third place in the Constructors' Championship. Looking at Red Bull's current position, they've certainly had a rocky ride lately. Despite their dominant performances in the first 5 races of 2024, it's clear that the team is struggling with more than just a few personnel changes. The loss of key figures, including Newey, Wheatley, and Courton, has had a ripple effect on their structure and success. And now, they find themselves in a tough spot, dropping to third place in the Constructors' Championship. It's a sharp contrast to the dominance they once enjoyed, and it raises a lot of questions about their ability to maintain that success going forward. At the heart of it all, there's a growing concern about whether Red Bull can bounce back from this series of departures. If they don't adapt quickly, they could find themselves slipping even further behind. And if you ask the team's principal, Christian Horner, one thing is certain: they cannot afford for their cars to fall behind in the race for victories. As Jos Verstappen, Max's father, pointed out, Max will not drive a car that's incapable of winning races, no matter how much history the team has. With everything in mind, the big question remains: did Red Bull intentionally slow down Newey's transition to Aston Martin? And if so, how much will this decision impact the 2026 car? Possibly more than anyone could predict. It's clear that the future is uncertain for both teams involved. Red Bull, now facing internal struggles and potential setbacks, might find it difficult to regain the momentum they once had. Aston Martin, on the other hand, has made some bold moves with their signings, but they also face the challenge of making up for lost time. So as we head toward 2026, it will be fascinating to see how these two teams navigate the challenges ahead. Can Aston Martin turn the tide with Newey's influence, or will Red Bull manage to stabilize and continue their success despite the changes? One thing's for sure: the next few years in Formula One are going to be incredibly exciting and full of twists. If you're keen to stay up to date with all the latest news on the 2025 season and beyond, make sure to check out our latest videos. You can find all the updates right here on your screen.